Okay, this better work because this is like my fourth time trying to do this episode, and I have no idea why it's working so difficultly. Konnichiwa, everybody. My name is New Jack. I am a music artist, digital artist, painting artist, audio engineer, and producer. I wanted to do this for a while now. I don't think I'm really an expert by any means or necessary, but I think I've been trying to get this off my to-do list for quite some time, seeing that I've been kind of living in my own little bubble here, so to speak. I wanted to take a step away and step back from this usual format of having this algorithm show you this template of like, in 5 different ways, I'll show you how to deal with your isolation at the end of this video. Like that whole fucking concept of just like oversaturated film worked fucking media on YouTube. So this is generally for me and for everybody else that maybe like, needs to hear it. So thank you for clicking on the video if you actually are visiting my channel and this is your first time seeing the video. This is the first episode, so we're going to get right into it. And it's a topic I know kind of well, so maybe we'll get to learn some things along the way about each other. We're going to start off on the subject of maybe going down some like history and like some backstory of me, and then kind of going up from there to where we are currently today, and then how this all intertwines and relates to each other at the end of this. So that way I'm not just seeming like I'm going around aimlessly on like the subject at hand. Isolation is something that I've dealt with for years, and I think it's something that has been in constant rotation of my life. And I'm not trying to speak about that in a sense of just like, whoa, me, like, oh my God, like I'm always all alone, like emo as shit. It's just that it is a big part of my life. And I think I know how to speak about it to my certain context. And I am no mental health expert, and I am no way of trying to give you advice. And like, I know more than you. Honestly, I feel like I don't know shit. To know knowledge is to know you know nothing. Socrates. I'm not sure if that's even how the quote goes, but there is something that I just want to touch on, just so that way maybe in correlation that maybe someone might get something out of this, and it might help me out. Help me release some things along the way. And first and foremost, here, I also want to start with some of this video's topic may be a little bit trigger warning because it does have to do with death, suicide, and also alcohol abuse and also substance abuse. And if that is something that's very triggering to you, or that maybe like a little bit be too much or too heavy of a topic, then by all means you're able to just skip ahead of the video and then maybe go ahead to the ending part of it. Or if you want to stick around and listen to that, it'd be much appreciated. And out of respect for the people that involved into this video as well, I won't talk about them too much, just because I want to give it out of respects and my love for them. So that's just for my behalf. So yeah, in the beginning, like I was a child that was kind of left at home quite a bit sometimes, because I was so used to being like attached to my mom's hip like throughout all my childhood that like I would never leave her side. So the times that like that would be left home alone for my parents to go run errands or do whatever, they'd also leave me at like cousins' houses and stuff like that. But most of the time, I would just stay at home alone. And to me, I was fine with that because I was just like, oh, like I was like, cool, I get to stay at home, play video games, and like watch TV and like freaking just work on music and or just work on art or just do art and then like listen to music and dance around the room and stuff like that, which I would do avidly. Time goes on, going to high school, stuff like that. So in the high school times, my mother actually passed away due to cancer when I was 16 years old. So yeah, that was the whole thing I had to like kind of like render, and I didn't really know how to deal or cope with it in the beginning because it was just such a big impact on my life. So I just never knew how to really process that. My brother from out of state that I actually share my mother with had to come visit and like had to like do the whole process with me as well. I was actually with him when we found out the news. On top of that, like he's been my best friend for years, but he's been away for so long, and so I wasn't really able to like kind of depend on him the way I wanted to depend on like an older brother. And on top of that, after she passed away, my father soon left out of country to go work on the stuff that he wanted to work on. I think in its own sense, he was coping the way that any man probably could or tried to to cope with like losing a wife. And I was just this kid kind of left alone and just kind of like living with my brother, my other middle brother, and then also my uncle, and then like they would be gone from more than half the time. So during that time though, like I was just relying on like alcohol and abuse and just like not really caring about like what I was doing at that point. And I knew I wanted to do something with film or music, but I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, like I'm just kind of like gonna party my life away and just kind of like work through this and hang out with all these friends that I have, or what I would actually call acquaintances or drinking buddies. And to me, I thought I was like, I'm gonna be with these people the rest of my life, and we're gonna hang out, and we're gonna like adventure and like do all this stuff. And then like if I get to the point where I want to in my career, then basically they're gonna come with me. And I'm so glad I was wrong about a lot of that. So I was just used to being like in a group of people all the time. And but even in that magnitude, I always still felt like alone, you know what I'm saying? Because it's true, you could be surrounded by a group of people and just still feel exactly as isolated as you would be by yourself. Because there's times I would look around the people I was with, and like, what do you share in common with these people? What do you like, do you really actually fit in here? Like, I feel like I'm the odd one out. That like the stuff I'm into is not what they're into. Like, we have some relation on stuff like that. Besides that, they're just like kind of just drinking buddies, or just here for this benefit that there's an open house, and that my house was the one that was open. You know, years go on, time passes. I go do college. I went from like doing LA Film School, going to Mount Sac, going to UCLA, and then doing like trade school and SAE Institute, getting my audio engineer license and stuff like. So I'm just kind of working my route of trying to find out who I am, meeting a lot of people along the way, and just kind of like working on myself. Really wasn't dating anybody at the time because I was just trying to figure my shit out. And on top of that, I was just like, didn't know if I was really capable of like being in a relationship, especially since I had my walls like so high up from all the shit that I've been through. And I was very stubborn and arrogant. So anyone that tried to get close, I just immediately pushed away. So then, yeah, as time goes on, and then like I'm doing school around the time that's ending of within like 2018, and actually I do start dating someone like during the end of like 18 to going into 19, and that person was actually living out of state, and this is going to get a little bit heavy again. So but then they had like these mental health issues, and I've had my mental health issues. So at that point too, I was still learning about myself, and I was still trying to figure out my own shit of being like, okay, like I'm good, I'm not good, and then freaking just still kind of abusing alcohol a little bit too much. And this person was just coming in, with their own problems and like their own mental health issues that there have been like before I met them, obviously, and we're trying to work on it together. It gets a little bit too heavy, and to the point where we're like, hey, I think you need to focus on your school and your child, and I think like I need to focus on me completing my school and like figure out what my placement is, because I'm supposed to be moving soon. And we just thought it'd be left best that we just like kind of break, and then like they work on each other's selves but still kind of check up on each other. Later on, like a little bit after that, I remember finding out this news through her mom and her best friend that she kind of took her own life, and I remember that really hit me really, really hard, because I was obviously out on my own doing my own thing and trying to get myself prepared to move back to Los Angeles. Then I find out that news, and I immediately just blamed myself. Like I was like, if I was there, I could have done more. If I could have like been there for her, then obviously none of this would have happened. And so there was so much in my mind at that point that kind of really deteriorated it, and I was just trying to move forward and focus. Like I was just like not in even a worse mental head state than I was trying to start off with, and I'm just sitting there like focusing on all the trauma and the shit I've been through and all this death and stuff like that. That was another thing too. As a kid, I remember going to like a lot of funerals, so I think that was just something I was so used to, is like death being around like the corner all the time. And this is going to lay into what I'm going to talk about like later, so I just want to give that as like a side note. It was something I always just remembered being like, oh crap, like fucking, like it's always here, and I'm always going to funerals. And then like my mom died at a young age. Now my girlfriend passed away, and like, or my ex girlfriend passed away. And then I'm just like kind of sitting here, like kind of trying to render all of it, trying to calm myself down. I have friends and family that are checking in on me, and I'm telling them the news, and like they're just kind of like struck by it. And and so like I'm kind of trying to figure it out. And then on top of that, I get like a word that I'm supposed to kind of go to work again for audio engineering in Los Angeles. And also on top of that, I was getting like gigs lined up for 2019. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I can move to the city, back to downtown, and I can focus on myself. I could really try to put in work for music and art, and really try to focus on what's going on. Like I'll be moving by myself again, and I'll be just trying to do what I can for like to help my better mental case, whatever. I thought so. And that kind of mindset, I thought I was like doing what I was supposed to be doing. I moved to LA, moved to downtown Little Tokyo, and it's going good in the beginning half, but immediately as I moved there, like right smack in the middle of it, is when like COVID hit. And when COVID hit, no one expected that shit to happen, obviously. So then I would say it's like a graces of like divine timing. Like I call it God or divine intervention or like spirit or the universe, whatever you may refer to it as. But I feel like there was a sequence of just being like put in that position in my own isolation and confinement for like, divine timing to be like, look, you need to focus on yourself. You need to freaking like work through what you've been pushing away for years, and this is gonna make or break you, probably both. But you need to fucking work on yourself, and then like either it's gonna be for the better or for the worse of you. And definitely, it did make and break me multiple times. And like all the music gigs and stuff I had lined up obviously ceased because like no one was recording. Obviously, there's no shows happening or no nightclubs because freaking like COVID's happening. So everything came to like a fucking ass grinding halt. And then at that point, I was like, okay, now I got to find a day job, and now I got to find this and like work in this situation. And I was like, crap, and like trying to like juggle everything together. And like at that moment too, like I was still going to therapy because like throughout that, I was like, I need to start going to therapy again because I was going to therapy beforehand, before the whole incident happened. And so when I was going through all of that, like that was the most time I realized that like in my own isolation of how to live with myself, so to speak. And because I was put into my own confinement, like it really was something where I had to like really, really dig deep on myself. And that was the years that like I was there from 2019 to 2023. And within that time, I went into the hospital more times than I can possibly count because of just how severe and how bad my panic attacks were. And I actually got diagnosed with severe panic disorder during that time. I actually still have a scar from when I was like having a panic attack and I was trying to catch myself on the way down and I just like fell and hit like a metal frame and I was just like laying there bleeding on the floor. That was most of the time too. I was just laying on this Snorlax and like just trying to like come back into balance and just like shaking in fear and just like really, really bad panic attacks where I legitimately thought I was dying. There were some nights that I would go to bed and before bed, like in my mind, I legitimately thought like I'm not waking up tomorrow. Like if my family finds my body, like I hope it's just not bad. And but there was legitimate thoughts going through my head of me dealing with all this stuff, and like coming to the reflection of like my mother's death and like my ex girlfriend's death and all the family people I lost in my life, living on my own, like learning how to deal with myself, learning how to live with myself and my own mental stability, shedding more tears than I ever have in my life, and like there is and going back to this too, even with her death and then also being in this confinement, like I would reach out to people. Like obviously I was talking to therapists and I was also talking to friends and family, and I would reach out to them and I couldn't really see them or be physical because it's COVID years. And I remember talking to them about a lot of things, and they would always say this thing, and then even my dad would say this is like, look, like I know you're going through something and I don't know how to help you, or like, actually, I don't know what to tell you or how to help you at all, but just know that I'm there for you. And when I heard those words, like it kind of hurt in a weird way because you want someone to be there. You want someone to lean on and depend on. And at that point, I was just like, okay, you can only help yourself now at this point because do you have the support and you have the love. I get that because my family is very loving and very supporting. My cousins and my best friends, all who I'm very grateful for, which I'll get to later on in this subject. And I'm very grateful for them. But it came down to me like, you can only heal yourself. They can be there to support you and be there to help you. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to be the one that puts in the footwork. And like God or Spirit's going to meet you halfway because I have to have belief in yourself and in something else here. Because you got to believe in something higher than yourself to get you past the point that you don't think you can get past. From there on out, I just started doing like a lot of meditation. I used to meditate on this thing a lot. I still do. I was doing a lot of cold, like ice baths, cold showers. I was just trying to obviously I always kept myself in high physical shape. So exercise was never a thing. And that was something else because I kept going to the doctor's office and they're like, you're physically fine and your numbers are fantastic. It's just that something else is going on that you need to take care of, obviously. And I was just like, okay, I'm going fucking crazy in here. It came to a point where I was really trying to self-discover myself. Like I was reading like books by Musashi Miyamoto of like the Dokuro, the Book of the Five Rings, Vagabond. I think The Body Keeps Count. That's a good book. I forgot who the author is by, but there's a lot of resources and studying and philosophy I was looking to at that point. I was obviously like journaling every day. Esther Hicks was someone I was listening to, along with like Tesla podcast and stuff like that. Not Elon Musk, but like like Nikola Tesla podcast. I was trying to discover more about myself, especially when I was like just in my own isolation. Obviously I was like having friends come over here and there, but I was still like in my own like imprisonment, so to speak. But then I wouldn't really want to look at it like that because I was like, okay, well, you're not in prison, like you're just like here trying to figure your shit out, and obviously like feel like you're in a tower somewhere, kind of like, studying and like being a disciple of whatever life is kind of throwing at you. It took a lot of work. Obviously, I wasn't perfect. Obviously, I went through some traumas while I was still there in that apartment, because actually during that time I had to get a day job. There was a lot of people I met that like obviously some things fell out with, and everyone else is going through their own mental health and like their own problems and stuff. And it's just being, human relations and thinking that people are your friends, and it's just a community of just being, drunk buddies. At that time, I was still really learning a lot about myself. And during that as well, though, I was making such crazy artworks and visuals and like music, and I really am thankful for that, because it was my way of coping and processing. Obviously, there was something inside of me where I needed a tool to kind of show and relate to everyone, be like, this is what I'm feeling, and how what I'm doing is not trying to like, I'm not trying to fucking like get money grabbing off of music and shit, but I just feel something to a whole magnitude that I need to express it, and I need a fucking technique or tool. And when I started really working through the process of my emotions and therapy and all this other crap, like it just felt like I was bleeding out, bursting of colors. So that's why usually my artworks reflects like that kind of like neon iridescent color look, is because it's just how I felt. All of it is just exploding emotions of color. And so it really helped me kind of define who I was as like an artist, so to speak, and it also kind of put me as in a point where I like, okay, now I can make like my own world off of like what I really love. That was a whole sequence of me still like, dealing with isolation. Obviously, I'm talking to like, people about it. Like I'm also talking to my friends, and I'm also like, like still going to therapy. Therapy ends and stuff, and I still continue to put my foot forward. I'm just trying to recognize the tools I've learned beforehand, so I can move forward with my life. Fast forward a little bit more. So I'm working in Sun Valley. I'm leaving Little Tokyo in 2023, and then I'm living with my dad for a little bit, because his like wife and his stepkid like went to go visit their family, out where they live. And he was like, like he by himself working, and I just needed a space to live for the time being. And I was like, hey, like, you mind if I stay with you? And obviously with him, we have our own kind of relationship. Our relation's civil. It's good. I think it took a lot of work for me and my father to work past, because especially after he left, like there was a lot of like blame game and stuff. But I'm digressing. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that our relationship was good enough for me to be staying with him for a little bit. And I was having this time limit. I was like, okay, well, they come back way later. I am going to try to find an apartment to live at and try to be closer to work. And so I was working for like a clothing brand at that point, like a clothing ambassador. I did find a place. I found a place with my old friends, so to speak, more like drinking buddies, because I just needed something to be closer to work. I was commuting from freaking Long Beach all the way to Sun Valley, and if you know how far that distance is, it's like a 2-hour drive, like with traffic sometimes. And so it was just bad. I don't even know why I did that to myself. Moved to Los Angeles again. I'm in Koreatown, and I'm actually commuting to Sun Valley, which is like a significantly way better. I mean, obviously it made the drive easier. I wanted to go to work. I'd be there on time. I would be able to like go to the gym before work and do all this and commune and stuff. And it was okay in that sense, but then also came with me in the living sequence. And during that time living there, I think this was like when the universe started like really showing me like old cycles, and be like, do you remember this? Because if not, like you're going to go through the same lesson again, and let's see if you learn from this. And if not, then you're going to have to repeat this and learn again, because I do believe that life, God, universe, spirit, whatever it may be, throws these lessons and these things in front of you again in different ways or shapes or forms, to be like, hey, like, did you learn? Or like, we're gonna have to do this all over again. And honestly, like, it comes down to you knowing your tools and techniques, and also your self-value, to be like, no, like, we're not doing this again. Because during that time, it was close to work. People I lived with, though, were just kind of like party animals, and so there would be people over all the fucking time, and they would just be like drinking and like, a substance abusing, and I'm not into that kind of shit. But out here in Los Angeles, it's like LA's fucking candy, and everyone's into it, and I'm just like, okay, I'd rather stay away from that, and that's not me. I would go to bed like, and there'd just be people drunk partying. I would hear them till the ends of the night. I'd wake up and go to work, and people would still be on the couch or still there like drinking and partying, and I'm just like, it's fucking 9 in the morning, dude, or like 8 in the morning. How are you still here? And I would like have to come back home to it, and the place was just like a fucking mess hall. Like, the place itself was just like not the cleanliness either, and I'm a really big picky person when it comes to cleanliness, and I was just like, okay, I get it's closer to work, I get it's not that much money. I was like, but this is just not you. I was like, this environment is just not healthy. Like, you are your environment, you are where you stay. And I was just trying to like kind of like collate and like also come to a certain point of balance with that and who I lived with. But I was like, dude, you have to leave. Like, it's just not healthy. This is not a healthy environment to be in. This is like, I mean, no offense to those people, but like they're their own, and I don't do this type of shit. And I do like obviously drink here and there, but I was like slowing down from what I used to be as a teenager because that reminded me of like being a teenager and how much I used to drink and like use that substance to like run away from what I was feeling and like after mom died and like just really abusing it. And then I felt like I was just back at those party house days like from that time, but it was just reiterated like in Koreatown. And I was just like, I can't do this. I was like, I have to leave. I basically, packed my bags. I put everything in my fucking car. What I had on me at that point was just not much at all. And that was another point too, where I was like surrounded by people, but just even felt even more isolated because I was just like I don't really get along with like all of this, and I don't know these people, and as much as I wanted, like, you want me to know them, like they don't know me, and like I don't know who the fuck, like what they can bring to this household, or like what the hell they have in just their possession. I got all my shit and I just left. I like paid them like last month's rent. I was just like, I'm out. I'm already on a month to month basis. I know this, but I was like, I don't even know where to go. And actually, at that point too, I think I was staying out of my car for like maybe like a few days, and then my brother hit me up like because he was staying at in this house, which is about like 20 minutes out of Los Angeles, not too far. And I was just like, okay, you know what? I was like, I think I could do that, which I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful for living here in this household, especially where I stay. And so this was the older brother that I lost my mother with. He's living here. I was living here with him. And then, I'm still commuting to the job in Sun Valley. There's a lot of drama and like a lot of heap that's going on with that job. And I was kind of just losing interest. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, it's almost time for me to leave this fucking place because obviously there's like work drama I don't want to really go and get into. That's a whole other tale for another time, I could tell you. I was like already looking into getting out of there. And so this is like coming up now, like in because I moved here in like February last year, and so now this is getting up to me being in June or like April, June, something like around that time frame in spring, going into summer. And I started dating someone new, and at first I was really afraid of this because I was not used to dating someone. I actually have since a long time, and I haven't dated anybody since the whole incident happened with me losing my ex to, her entire choices that she made. And I was afraid of it. I was afraid. I was just like, oh crap, like I really don't want to mess this up. And honestly, I want to be here and be catering and be nurturing. And obviously, there's going to be some things I have to work through that I haven't worked on in a long time. So I was just like, am I capable of this? In which I was, but I think maybe we may have moved a little bit too quickly. But at the same time, I was just like trying to make sure I'm like, hey, like it's going to take time and understanding and patience to like be with this person. But we got along great in the beginning. It was the thing where we got along really great for how much we had in common, for how much we shared same interest of like cosplay and the things we're into and the communication, the jokes that we had, and like it was a distance thing, but like we still made it work in some regard. And like it was very nice to be in that situation again. I kind of proved to myself like you can be in a relationship again, you can love again because you've had your walls up for so high for so long, especially pushing everyone out. And I think that like it's okay to like let yourself be vulnerable. It takes a lot for you to be vulnerable, but also there is a strength in being vulnerable. So I think that it does take practice, and I think that it is kind of seen sometimes as a weakness, but I think that vulnerability builds a lot of strength. So that was going on. I was kind of happy with life at that point, living with my brother, and then I have my girlfriend on my side that's also like in the same shit that I'm into, and then like we're kind of going back and forth, going to cons and whatnot. And it was a very good like moment in my life where I was like, huh, maybe life isn't so bad when you're like with people and like not alone. And I was like so kind of you know with people all the time that was just like not beneficial for me, and I just feel like I was just going from like place to place kind of looking to like surround myself by like the atmosphere of substance, of which I didn't need because I was depending on it for so long to be social. And I came to a point where I was like, you don't need alcohol to be social. Like, like you go, because I really didn't realize how much of like an introverted and how weird I am. I always knew how weird I was, but how introverted I would be without that substance in crowds. And I was just like, I know I could be a social butterfly, but at the same time, I'm not unless like that happens. And I was like, you don't need that. Like, you don't need that to define you, your artwork, or who you are as a person. Like, there's no reason for you to, so like, to really rely on that to get you where you need to be. And I think it took me a long time to make that huge separation. So when I was like with my girlfriend and my brother and like kind of like learning how to be back in my friends' lives like that I haven't seen in forever. They've always been around for years, but they are like obviously like these are close friends that I've had for years. Been like a little bit discommunicated with them and started recommunicating with them again. It was just going like really well for a sense where I was really finding out more about myself and how I can be in a social environment with people rather than being off on my own, which I was so used to for a long time because I was in LA like doing my thing for years and off of my own, and then like being back in this household next to her, and then my uncles like live like 5 minutes away, my cousin lives like down the street, so I'm back in a community sense where people are all like surrounded by me. Great, all good. And then October hits, and everything just changed like a lightning bolt again. Where I was just like, I'm not sure what the lesson is here, but I'm gonna have to really be patient with it. So my brother had a stroke at work and it hit him really hard. And so now he's still hospitalized in the hospital bed and I still take care of all of his stuff like outside of, the hospital, like all the legal stuff, all his like insurance shut and all that stuff like that. So it was really hard in the beginning and I was trying to go through it. And then like in the middle of that, after like a little bit after October, like I got broken up with because like, things weren't just working out. And I think she really needed to find out more about herself, and like it was a whole entire thing that we wanted. Honestly, like there's just a lot of heavy weight that was going on. So yeah, she really needed to work on herself, and I know that I was going through a lot, and then like the communication was going like kind of back and forth. The distance was getting to us, and it was like kind of like very heavy, very quickly for a relationship that was so new. And I get that. I mean, at that time, I really wanted her by my side, and I like, it just didn't work out the way it didn't work out, and I don't have any blame or hate against her because honestly, I really have a lot of appreciation for her, and I have a lot of love for what she does, and I think she's a very talented person, and it does suck that it didn't work out, and I do miss it and mourn it, but it just governed the way it governs, and in the beginning, I was very frustrated because you know it's like I had my brother in my proximity, and I was so used to having him by my side and if even if he wasn't there, I was able to text him, send him memes, or like game with him. And then with her, she was by my side as well. And then like obviously I wanted her with me when that whole entire event happened. And then the fact that she wasn't kind of just like showed me I was just like I really have to do this on my own again. And I remember I think actually one of the last things I said to her while we were like on the phone breaking up was like I don't want to be alone again. Like I really don't. And I just really was kind of afraid of it for a second because I just remember the isolation of all of it and how much like it kind of can be like a mental head game when it happened, I was super frustrated. I was like, fuck, she lied to me and now she's gone. And then like now my brother's not here. And if he like just went to the hospital and he like took care of himself and went to the doctor when I asked, he wouldn't be in this position. And then I was like overwhelmed with all the doctors like, notes and like the lawyer and the insurance and like communication with my family because my family's asking about everything. And I was at one point I was just like a broken record because I was just saying and repeating information so much that I would like lose train of thought and I would just be like, what am I saying? Like and I would just go out of it. So it was just all this like overwhelming, all this like a lot of stress. And then on top of that, I was super freaking just like aggravated about the whole situation. I was like emotional about being broken up with and then like my brother in the hospital until I had to come to a halt. And I was like, look, like I know you're going through a lot. I know this is a lot to deal with. I know that you are no stranger to isolation, but your anger and your resentment is not going to fix or adjust anything. Like, even if you make artwork off your anger, like, you're going to look back at it and be like, wow, that's what I was going through. So I had to come to a halt and be like, okay, her decision's her decision, and I agree with it. And I'm not going to force her to be in a relationship, and I'm not going to sit here and try to hold my hand and be like, "You have to stay with me." Of course, I want her by my side. Of course, I have appreciation for her, but she has her own things she needs to work on. She needs to discover herself. This is very heavy for a very new relationship, and it's not like she was going to go with me through trauma and then be like, "Hey, peace out." Like, I don't think anyone really goes through anyone with like a heavy situation like that and then just leaves, because even if they do, that's a lot of baggage to carry and a lot of stuff to hold with you. So I was like, okay, I have to take care of his stuff, my brother. You have to deal with it at hand, day by day, step by step. And what it was as a reinterpretation of like, I even said it to someone. I was like, I feel like I'm back in Little Tokyo, but it's just like in a different form. And I'm dealing with my isolation again because it's in practice. And I knew that once all this stuff started and initiated, I was like, this is just going to be a game of patience. And I'm no stranger to this, but it is going to be a lot of willpower to like kind of move day by day, step by step, because I just know what this comes with. And does get the better of you. I mean, obviously, like I'm back in isolation of myself, but it's the reason why I wanted to talk about this. It's because, like, it for sure can make you overthink It can make you like, overstress. Obviously, you like live by yourself. And then like to me, obviously I have a whole household to myself that I don't come back to anybody except my dog. But having a husky is not really the best emotional support animal as someone I could tell you from experience that yeah, he's just an old man. But I love him, he's here and I have my dog here to help me like, in some regard, but it's not like I'm coming back home and he's asking me how my day is at the end of the day. All of that, kind of snowballed effect, and that's a lot to take away from, but I kind of wanted to give you like a little time skip era of just like how much, time I've spent like alone to myself going throughout all these years of just like self isolation. And it has its ups and downs. I think there is a lot to discover about yourself when you're in your own confinement. I think there's a lot of things that you need to learn about living with yourself and like how much you really think, and like it can drive you crazy, but at the same time you kind of just have to have this in a full complete balance. For instance, like let's go down this road. In the beginning, I was very amongst a lot of people that I were thought were my friends, and I obviously have a few really good friends that I have in a close circle that I have live and die by. So like they're amazing people, and honestly, I would not have been where I am today without their help. Logan, Zach, Marston, Rosemary, Chris, like these people have literally helped me in so many different ways, and they've been throughout with me throughout the years and seen me transcend and change through these years. And in the beginning, I was so used to just having this community of like just I don't know drunk like drinking buddies, so to speak. And so when I finally realized, I'm like, well, they're just not really like friends or like acquaintances, and drinking buddies change all the goddamn time. So what does it fucking matter? And then it re-showed itself when I was living in like Koreatown. And then like, being on your own can definitely do things to you, and it helps you do a lot of self-discovery. But I remember at a certain point in my life, especially after my mother passed away, there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna be alone for the rest of my life, and I don't give a fuck because I'm not gonna need anybody else in my life except me. So like whatever, what does it matter? And that alone was the wrong mindset to have, because it was like me being way too self isolated and having my walls way too up high, where you just push everybody back and you really have no empathy and you have no kind of social skills to be, with anybody else. And it takes courage to like be vulnerable in that state where you let people in, but it does need to be a thing, because like it's either one side of the spectrum. Those are two extremes, and I've seen it happen to other people as well, and reiterated it in the sense that like I've seen people say like I know how to be by myself and be alone, but yet they're surrounded by people 24/7, by like friends or family out doing things, and they're not really ever alone, and their alone time sometimes is like downtime. But to be by yourself consistently, like they start to go crazy and freak the fuck out. And I'm like, see, like you really need to put that more into practice though. And I'm not trying to judge you by it, but it is something that is for sure that needs to be in more constant practice. Because then if you put into too much practice where you're just alone all the time and you just kind of push people away and start kind of hating and regretting people, and then just have like no kind of like willpower to be in a social setting, then obviously it could be makes you like the hermit mode, and it makes you a little bit more aggressive, and you think you have more of like a aggravated mindset towards the world, or maybe an understanding. But two sides of this spectrum that are like very extreme, then I think there always needs to be the balance. Always needs to be the balance of like knowing how to be social, but have those boundaries and actually be there with people that love and adore you, and actually know how to communicate. And if it's not right, then you know when to step away. But also to learn how to be by yourself and like appreciate the time to yourself and the willpower and the understanding and also the patience that comes with it, but not go so far off the deep end that you just start like pushing everyone else away. And which I was doing both sides each time. And I now being back in it, it definitely has its ups and downs. I mean, in the beginning, like I said, when I like the whole hospital thing happened and like getting broken up with kind of hit me kind of hard, and I was starting to like swing through my emotions again. And I was like, hey, like, look it, you're not your emotions. You're definitely supposed to feel them and process them, but do not hold on to them and try to make them seem worse than what it is, because then you're starting to overthink, and you're starting to think things that are worse in your head when they're really not that bad. And I think you're trying to get over emotional again. And to be back in my isolation again is just it is another lesson. I think it's also a blessing at the same time, and I think a lot of things happen like that in life that are just a cycle of lessons and blessings. And I kind of am just taking it for the appreciation for what it is right now. I obviously kind of wish that some things were different, but I mean, you can hope and wish, but at the same time, you can only do what you can within every given day, correct? I was so used to having my ex by my side that like obviously I still want to talk to her and like be in communication with her, because even when she was just like, oh, I still want you to be a good part of my life, and also I want you to be like there, and I want to communicate because I care about you still. But then like when you don't hear that communication or actions or people things from people or places, and you're like, okay, well, you're showing your actions, but I'm not going to hold that against you. You're living your own life. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, you lied and I hate you for it. People have their own lives. And I learned that this way that I learned with my brother too is that when he had his stroke in the beginning, obviously I had a community of people checking in on me, wondering how I am, wondering if I needed things. We'll come over and hang out and stuff like that. And it was very heavy in the beginning, when I was very grateful for and appreciative for all those people and family and friends. But at the end of the day, when like they still have their own lives and their own selves to take care of. Like I am not their responsibility. Obviously they care, which is amazing and it's great, and I'm super grateful and appreciative for that. But at the end of the day, they have their own stuff to deal with. I can't be a task for them all the time. Like I was said beforehand, like when I was going through stuff like in Little Tokyo, and like when I was like calling friends and family, when they told me they're like, look, I want to help. Like I don't know how to help you or what to say to you, but I just know that I'm here for you. And I feel like it's always been kind of a thing for me in that sense. Like, yeah, people are always going to be here for you, but at the end of the day, it is up to you to heal yourself and work on yourself and be beneficial from like all the things that you learned predecessing and like all the tools and techniques and stuff. Because I've told a lot of people like in my life that I was just like, and then the way I've told them is how I told myself is like, look, I want to be there for you, and I am here for you. I will be patient, understanding, and like diligent on like our relationship, but I can't heal you at the end of the day. It's like, because it's at the end of the day, it's up to you to heal yourself in order to meet people halfway. You can't love anybody if you don't love yourself first. And it took me a long time to realize that, because I'm a very emotional person, so to speak. Obviously, I'm an artist, but and a musician. So like I think being over emotional sometimes is definitely not the greatest feat, because you want to have a process of emotions to know that you are not your emotions. You definitely should feel them and not hold them in. You should definitely like, let them out in some kind of form that like is healthy. But to like hold on to them for too long or get over emotional things, it kind of wears and tears at you, and then you create your own suffering or hell, so to speak, because then you're just locked in on this emotional bubble, and then that's where you think that life should be placed and that's it. But no, it's more of a practice of knowing that you can process these things and move forward from them. This builds strength and foundation and grounding, because I feel like if you don't go through those downs to get to those ups, like how would you not know what your strengths and your foundation is? I think that a lot of foundation is built off of the things that we've suffered with or suffered for the relationships that we go through. And some of them are pretty bad, yes, but I think it's about how you pick yourself up and get through those things to actually really know who you are as a person. So later on in life, when you recognize other people going through things or see eye to eye with someone that's been through something similar, game recognizes game. And you'll actually be like, you know what, I do understand this for the better benefit. Because I don't think love would be able to be appreciated if you actually didn't lose some things. We lose stuff, or people, or places, or things all the time to know what the love is. The love of like, oh damn, like remember me living in Little Tokyo, or oh like remember this relationship I had with this person, like or remember like us in this memory going down this place. Like the different love is shown in different forms in different ways, and I think that's very beautiful. And I think with loss really comes that highlight of just like knowing how much you appreciated those times in your life. To tell you the truth, I just had that talk with my director, Logan, who we just got done working on a photo shoot set recently, and we're doing some other film works that like working on together. And we're going down memory lane of me living in Little Tokyo when he used to come over, and we would like work on like art and music and stuff. And he would come to my Zen den, so to speak. And he was saying, "It's like God, what a time and what a memory." And I'm like, it was something that I'm very appreciative for even how much like I was suffering like with my mental health and anxiety, and how much I was going through it. Like there's so much artworks and so much beautifulness to that apartment that I look back on old videos. I'm like, God, what a time. And like if I tried to go back and recreate that, like to live in a Little Tokyo again, I'm like, it wouldn't be the same. It would just be me trying to recreate something that's already past happened, and I should be appreciated for that. Because then if I'm trying to just recreate that, then I'm just gonna be endlessly suffering and be depressed about it, because I'll be like, oh, it's not the same and blah blah blah. But I'm still appreciated for everything in my life, regardless of the ups and downs that it's had, and the heartbreaking moments that I've had to go through, and the things and people I wish I were still in my life. But I mean, I will still always have a love for them. I I wish there was still a lot of people in my life. I wish there was still a lot of people that I were by my side. I wish there's still people that talk to me because I just miss the sound of their voice. I just miss the jokes that they would share. I would miss the, like the way they would speak to me about things, or when they would just check up. And like when you don't have that anymore and you lose like a lot of people in your life and you come back to yourself, you just have to know that you have to be appreciative for all those things. And it does suck. I think when we dwell too much on it, like we're just thinking about like, man, remember this, but at the same time, it takes you to reach out to them. I mean, the door swings both ways. You can. It comes up to you to reach out to the people that you love, and hopefully they reciprocate. But even if they don't, like where your standards stand, and it takes two to tango. If they really do care and love and appreciate and show that they want to be there in your lives, they will show that. But if you try to reach out and they don't show that stuff back, then it's okay. Just some things, some relationships grow, some relationships fade, and I wish that some people stayed. But at the end of the day, it makes you who you are for these lessons and these blessings that you've actually received in your life. And I'm very, very grateful for the people I have in my close circle. And I feel like that's all you really need, a few good people or community to know that really house you and uplifts you to who you can actually lean on and depend on, and vice versa. You want to be there for them as much as they're there for you. Relationships take a lot in all regards, not just in the sense of romantic, but also platonic and also family and like the friendly relationships like that. It takes a lot of work. It takes work to be in relationships with the people and the relationship with yourself. I think there's a lot of practice involved with that, and I think it's good to put it into practice consistently. It's a lot of work. I will say that. I will say it's a lot of work, but I think it's good work to be done because I think it's one of the most healthy investments to have inside your body and your soul, and also with the people that you really care about in your life. If you care about them, then you should definitely show them, but also like be susceptible to knowing that you're going to be okay when you're on your own and during the hard times when you're just like lost in your own isolation. To tell you the truth, this is something I've just been wanting to get off on my back for a while because I've been so used to it and been on my own for the longest time that I think it's just been in constant practice. Do I know anything about this subject? I don't even know. I don't even think so. But at the same time, I'm just trying to reiterate kind of what I've learned throughout the years, and being back in my isolation again. I'm not trying to be like this like emo like lonely person, just be like, I'm just so alone right now. It's just more of just like I think there is a peace and a meditation that comes with it. It is something that you should take, with grace. And I think that it's not the end of the world, obviously. And there is a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of overthinking. There's a lot of like scariness, and there's a lot of like confronting, and also, you learning how to move on and move forward with a lot of things in life. And there's a beauty out of that. I think there's a beauty out of the things that you can learn from yourself. And there's also communities and people that are always going to be there for you. People do come and go, but you'll meet new ones along the way. And maybe the old ones return, or maybe they don't. But even if they don't, like, you're still going to be appreciative for all the people that you met that really meant something in your life. And I think if you hold on to that too tightly, then obviously, like, you're just going to be endlessly suffering. But if you kind of look at it with like a dying flower, it grows into the ground, comes back up, and comes into something new. It's definitely a process that I have been working on diligently and effectively. I think that I've just been obviously trying to put this into words to say to people that might help them out in some regard. It's been about a few months now since I've been in my own isolation, but I think I wanted to just talk about this as a first episode because I think it was something very meaningful to me, like it's something that like I have dealt with for years, and I think that it's definitely a subject that a lot of people kind of deal with. And there's a lot I could speak about of this subject. To tell you the truth, I can probably go on for a very long time about like isolation and like like the meditation of oneself and mindset and like the loneliness, but also like the clarity that comes with that. I don't know if I really want to like hone in too much about that. So I think this might be coming to like a good wrapping point of the episode too. And plus, I just wanted to kind of speak about those few things just to maybe help out some people along the way. But I don't know, as a first episode, I mean, let me know in the comments below if you want me to do more of this. I know that this is like kind of a heavy subject to start off with, but I mean, comment below if you actually would want to hear more about this, or if you would like to put in tools or techniques that helped you get through your isolation or help you like, move forward with your life, and also that you can help somebody else out with. I will probably be doing a little bit more of this. I have a little bit of announcements coming up. Let's see. Like I said, I just got done with a photo shoot of my best friend Logan, and the artworks that we've been working on. also working with my other best friend, Oh My State, and working with his clothing brand, stuff like that. So still got that in the works, and I am releasing and performing a set at the end of this month in February called A Merciful Mind. That's a deal, actually, kind of why all this kind of stuff we talked about, and that's where the influence came from, is that it's been helping me cope and also like release, some energy, and also helping me kind of like work through my emotions and feelings, especially since like, the whole thing's in October till now. And I think it's going to be something very important. It's something I've been working on for the past couple months, and it means a lot to me. So I can't wait to release that to you guys, to show you guys that, and perform it. It's going to be something very, very special. And me and Logan will be recording and then producing that later out. And more photo shoots, like I said. With that, though, I have no more announcements for the time being. More few episodes probably coming up. Thank you guys so much for actually even like listening to this. If you made this to the end of the video, just comment below. Stay saucy. I comment below. Stay saucy if you made it to the end of this video. But yeah, thank you guys. My name is NeuJack, and I will see you in the next one.